Hi, I'm Lee Herbert, and as for my hair, I think I'm just going to wear a hat for the next few videos, but that's not why we're here today. Today we're here to talk about the Synology DS420 Plus, which is a network attached storage device and a RAID array. So what is that and why would you want one? Well, basically what a RAID array is a box that you put a bunch of hard drives in, and instead of your computer seeing those as individual hard drives, it sees it as one giant hard drive. So for example, you could put in 1, 2, 3, 4 separate 1 terabyte hard drives in, and your computer would see this as a single 4 terabyte drive, or a lot bigger. Now the advantage of that is instead of having all of your data saved over multiple different hard drives all over the place, you can have it in a single place. And that's really good because I know before I got a few of these, my wife always used to joke that she was afraid that she'd one day hear a crash and come running to the office and see me just buried under an avalanche of hard drives, which is quite funny to think about, but not funny if it happens to you. The other challenge with having all those drives is finding stuff. So often I'd have a spreadsheet and I go, right, I need to find the footage from Fiji in April 2015. And so I know that is on drive 37 in column B, color purple. Whereas if all your stuff is just on a single location, it's much easier to find. So that's a nice advantage of having a big drive in one place. The other advantage of using a RAID array is that you can set it up for redundancy. So you can set up one of those drives as, I hesitate to say backup, because for it to be a real backup, you have to have multiple copies in different places, but you can have redundancy. So basically you could have 1, 2, 3, 4 1 terabyte drives in here, but only have it as a 3 terabyte drive, and that last fourth one is saved as a backup or redundancy because it spreads the information across all 4 drives, and if one of those drives goes bad or fails, you don't lose any of your information. You'll just get a little notification saying, hey, this drive's about to fail, you might want to go and get a replacement. So that's some really cool features as to why you would want a RAID array. Now there's 2 different types of physical connections that you can have with RAID arrays, and there's advantages and disadvantages to both. There's DAS, which is direct attached storage, which is drives that are connected via Thunderbolt or USB normally, and then there's a NAS, which is what this is, which is connected via a network cable. So the advantage of DAS is that it is a faster connection. So if you're working with really big files and you need to read and write like 8K video and edit it off of the drive, you want to connect via a Thunderbolt or USB connection. The advantage of a NAS, which is connected via network cable, means that multiple computers can access this drive at the same time. So if you're living in a household with 3, 4, 5 people, or if you're in a small office and you want a big drive that everyone can access to and get their photos and get their videos and all their stuff off of and onto, a network device is really handy. Now, as I mentioned, it's not as fast in terms of connection speed for the network one as opposed to the direct attach one, but it's still pretty darn quick. So if you're dealing with photos, no problem whatsoever. You can have, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of raw photos on one of these, and you can edit those photos directly off of this device. Even with video, I've tested this with up to 2 or 3 streams of 4K, and I can edit 2 to 3 streams of 4K directly on the device. Once you get past that and you start dealing with multiple, like 4 or 5 streams of 4K or 6K or 8K, this is good for storing those files, but you can't edit directly off of it because the network cable just isn't quick enough to make that connection. The other thing to keep in mind with that is you do want to be connected via a cable. You can obviously connect it to it via Wi-Fi. This doesn't have Wi-Fi, but you can connect it to something that does have Wi-Fi and connect to it. But Wi-Fi connections can be a bit flaky sometimes, so you don't want to be editing a video while you're doing that and suddenly the Wi-Fi drops out, and that can cause bad things to the file. So I do recommend connecting to a cable if you can, if you're working with video. If you're just working with documents or photos, Wi-Fi is just fine. Some things I really like about the Synology ones in particular is some really clever things that they've done with the hardware. So let's have a quick look at the hardware. The first thing I really like about it is the fact that it's toolless when you want to put a drive in. Now, it's not a big deal if you want to just get a screwdriver and have to screw stuff in, but being toolless just makes your life a little bit easier. So let me show you how easy it is to install a hard drive on one of these. You just pop out the caddy, and it does have screws here on the bottom, so if you did want to put in a little little laptop hard drive in here, you could. You do need screws for that, but then you just remove these little connector jobbies on the side, and you can see these little knobs that basically act like your screws. Here's a hard drive I've prepared earlier, and I will mention with hard drives, you do want to get a NAS hard drive for this, so they will be labeled as network attached storage drives. The reason for that is that most drives are not designed to be on 24/7, 365 days a year, which normally you're just going to leave these things on. So NAS drives are specifically designed to be left on all the time and have got that sort of built in for them. And you just slot your drive in. Make sure the connecty bits are on the back there, which I haven't done, which is why I wasn't slotting in properly. So slot it in with the connecty bits on the back. Then you just take these, pop them in. Makes that satisfying little click sound. And then once it's in, you just slide it back into the bay. And that's it. It's as easy as that. Some other things to look at with the actual physical drives is you can see you've got LEDs on the front to give you indicators on what drives are active and doing stuff. You've got your power button, obviously, and you've got a very clever USB port on the front here. Now, there's some really interesting things you can do with that USB port. You can plug in printers and whatnot, but what it's really good for is plugging in other hard drives. So, for example, let's say you're a photographer and you're on set and you've got like a NAR box, which is a really cool little Wi-Fi hard drive you can get to automatically back up your photos and your videos off of your camera. You come back to your office, you come back to your home, you got your NAR box that connects via USB, you pop it in there, and you can set up an app that runs on your Synology to automatically look at the files on that NAR box and copy them directly into a folder on your Synology. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can either just copy everything off of it, but you can also set it up so that it looks at the NAR box and goes, any files that I've already got on the Synology that are on the NAR box, ignore those and only take the new files that are on there and put them on there. So you're not doubling up all the time. So that's a really cool feature of the USB. And there's another USB on the back. And you can see you've also got the two network cables on the back there as well. I want to jump out now and have a look at how easy it is to set these up. And I really want to point that out because one of my biggest concerns when I was first looking at getting one of these, and I probably waited a year longer than I should have to get one, is because I thought they were really complicated to use and set up. So I was like, and I used to be a computer engineer like 20 years ago, but I used to be a computer engineer. And even I sort of looked and went, you know what? I just can't be bothered to deal with technical stuff. And once I got these, I felt quite silly for waiting so long. It's really not that complicated to set up. So let's go jump on the computer and let me show you how easy it is to set one of these up. So the first step is to download the Synology Assistant. You can see here that there's actually quite a lot of Synologies on my network. I've blurred them out because security and stuff. But you see down here there's a Synology NAS. So you'll probably see just the Synology NAS show up at here. And then you come up and click on Connect. So this will open whatever your default browser is. So if you're using Chrome, if you're using Safari, Opera, Windows Explorer, what have you, I happen to be using Safari. And here we go. So we go Setup. It then asks us to install the disk manager. And we go, yes, please do that. And it warns us that all the data on the disks that are in there are going to be erased. And like, are you sure you want to do that? You go, yep, absolutely, we want to do that. And I'm now just going to speed this up a little bit so you don't have to watch the whole 9 minutes. If you don't see your Synology appear in your Synology Assistant here, wait for the Synology, the actual box, to beep once, and then click Search, and it will refresh the list for you, and it should show up in your list. You'll then get another beep, and it'll ask you to create a server name. So I'm just going to call this DS420. Ask you for a username, and I'll just use, actually we'll use the very boring username, and then it asks you to create a password. I'm going to copy and paste a password that I've created before, and it's complaining that the username already exists, or is reserved for the system user, so I need to call it something else. So I will call this DS41 in terms of the username as well. Then it asks you for your Quick Connect details. And now the cool thing about Quick Connect, and this will ask you to either set it up or you can use an existing one, and you use your Quick Connect account to connect to your Synology from a remote device. So for example, from a smartphone or a tablet or a computer that's outside of your network. Let's say you're on, you're in a meeting in Bulgaria and you need to get some photos off of your Synology. You can use your Quick Connect ID to link the two devices together to get the stuff off of it. I'm just going to skip this step for the moment and go on to the next one. Now you can choose to do this. I actually don't normally do this with my devices because I deal with some clients who are very strict with their privacy, so I leave that spot out, and that's it. You're set up. Easy as that. You can send analytics. I go, yes, I do. And they privacy. And that takes you through a very quick tour of the system. So it shows you that this is like your app switcher, these are like your folders, your control panel, and there you go. It's as easy as that to set up your device. So if I now go into my control panel and I want to see some info on this system, you can see here that it's all the guts and all the specs. I can see in the storage that I've got four 4 terabyte drives in there. So you see here that there is no volume set up. So what I need to do is I need to click on the apps, and it shows me that I can drag apps. That's not what I want. I want to go to my storage manager, and I open that app up, going to volume. It says there is no volume, so I'm going to go ahead and create one. And you can go with a quick one where it'll use their hybrid RAID system, and I go with this because it's pretty straightforward. But if you know what you're doing with RAID systems, where you know you want RAID 0, RAID 4, RAID 5, what have you, you can go with that. But for most people, I just go with the simple one and let them do their thing. And you give it a name. We'll call this DS420 storage type, and you can change the type here. I'll just go with this, and it gives you, this is a recommended RAID type for beginner users. Choosing this type allows you to combine drives of different sizes in the future to optimize volume size to ensure data redundancy. It asks you, are you sure you want to use all the drives in there? And I go, yes, I do. Thank you very much. Again, it warns you that all information will be erased, and you go, yep, that's fine. Then it asks you to select a file system. So, for example, BTRFS. As it says here, this supports advanced features including shared folders, snapshots, replicas, all that kind of stuff. Or you can go with X4, which is the file system widely used in Linux and can be migrated to Synology's running earlier versions. But I'm not doing any of that, so I want all the cool stuff. I'm going to go with BTRS. It then confirms that this is what you want. It's going to end up being about 10 terabytes. Well, a little under 11. And we go apply. And that'll be quite a while to have a think about things. And you can see there that it's actually created it right away. And you've got a little symbol there showing you how much is happening and when it's all be done. And while that's doing its thing, I think I might take you for a little tour of the rest of the system. So up here in the right hand corner, you've got notifications. So if you're getting warnings or anything going on, you'll see the notifications up there. You've got your options. So this is like almost like your start menu if you're on Windows. So you've got your restart, shutdown, all that jazz. You've got your search, so you can search for files on your Synology. You've got widgets, so that's this thing down here, and your widget, if I just pull that up and bring it down, this gives you, quick access to quick information on your system. So at the moment I can see the system health, the resource monitor, but if I want to add anything to this, I can click on this little plus in the top left hand corner, and I can say, right, well, I also want to see my storage. You can see it's made a little bit bigger, so I'm going to have to raise up, and I might have my widget take up the entire screen. And you can see how easy it is to get around the interface. And basically, if you're used to your standard sort of computer interface, it's fairly straightforward in terms of how this interface works. And you can reorder your widgets if you want, just by dragging them. Let's see what other widgets we want to add here. Recent logs, tasks. Nah, actually I'm happy with the widgets that I've got, so I'm just going to resize this a little bit so that it's not taking up all the space, but it shows me everything I want to see. So I can see the resource monitor, I can see how much space is being used, how much space I have available, the health of my system. Everything's nice and healthy. And the last thing I want to show you here is the package center, and this is basically like your app store on your Synology, and we'll just, sign my life away. And you can see here, if I expand this window, and I'm just clicking on the corner and dragging it out, you can see there is a ton of packages, that they call them packages, but these are apps. So for example, you've got a Plex media server, which if you use Plex, you can see here you've got tons of stuff. I've got no idea what it is. Joomla, I know that's programming something. But the stuff that you're most likely to use, where, the stuff that you are going to use as an end user and not necessarily as a developer or someone who's doing something really fancy with it. If you come to this where it says all packages, click on that, and it gives you a breakdown here of like utilities, multimedia. That's probably the one that we're going to look at first. So here you can see you've got a media server, Moments app, video station, photo station, audio station, and I'm definitely going to install the video station and the audio station, and that allows me to vary, and it tells me I need to install PHP. Yep, that's fine. And so these are the ones that allow you to very quickly access your photos and your videos and view them directly on your device. What's really nice is I can do this while it's creating my volume, my giant hard drive, as it were. And in terms of getting access to this, well, now if I just go and open up a Finder window, you'll see that I have the Synology set up on here, and I need to connect to it. If I look in video, there is the one folder that exists on there, but if I come and if I want to create more folders on here, well, I can do this in the Finder, so I can just go, yep, new folder, and I can call this demo stuff, and there's that folder. So I'm doing this on my computer. I'm going to hide that, and so you can see I'm actually doing this on my Finder on my Mac. But if I bring that back and go into the File Station app on my Synology, there is my video file, and there is my demos folder. And if I want to create another folder in here, so for example, I go to create, I say new folder, and I go made on Synology, and click OK. Well, there's that folder, and now let's go and check if that folder is in fact in my Finder. Oh, look, there it is. So you can either manage your files in the Finder or Windows Explorer on a Windows machine, so on and so forth, or you can do it directly on your Synology. So really, the thing that I really want to get across here is that if you're concerned about getting a Synology because you think it's going to be overly complicated, or that's what computer people deal with, please don't worry about that. If you are familiar with using a computer, even the basics of using a computer, you can set up and use a Synology. They're so much simpler than I thought they were going to be, and it's really easy to get in, get started, stop mucking about, and get working with it. So as you can see, if you're used to using your basic sort of standard computer interface, you can set one of these up. And the third-party apps and the built-in apps are really powerful in terms of having the DS apps that you can have on your phone or on your tablet, so you can remotely access all the files on here. A perfect example would be, again, let's say you're a photographer and you're meeting with a client and they go, oh, we really like the photos you've shown us in your portfolio, but have you got any photos like X? And you go, oh, I don't have any on my phone, but I've got some on my Synology back home, so let me just bring up the Photos Synology app on my phone, which can then access over the internet the photos on here, and you can access all of the photos instead of having to keep them all on your phone. So that's I've done that quite a lot. Another thing you can do is using apps for third parties. The one that I use the most with this is for Microsoft OneDrive. So I'm a Mac user, and one of the little caveats of using OneDrive on a Mac is your OneDrive drive cannot live on an external hard drive. It's got to be on your computer. The problem with that is if you've got 1 terabyte of storage in your OneDrive, that's taking up 1 terabyte of storage on your computer. And for those of us with laptops, storage is a premium on there. So I don't want to keep my OneDrive on my laptop, but I want to have those files accessible. So there is a OneDrive app for the Synology. So I keep my OneDrive data on my Synology and can quickly and easily access that from my computer or my mobile devices whenever or wherever I want. So that's a really useful thing that I find in terms of third-party apps. You get Plex Media Server, you've got a video server, you've got a photos server, all that kind of stuff. And most smart TVs, you can download Synology apps for those, and the built-in apps on the TVs will access that as well. So there's some really cool stuff you can do with these. Now, I know I'm sort of going on and on that it sounds like I'm really a big fan of them, but I am. Like, I've got about 6 or 7 of these at home used for various things. Now, I know I'm going on and on a little bit, and it sounds like I'm, totally biased, and I am. And look, nothing's perfect. I'm sure they fail. I've had a couple of these fail on me over the last 5 years that I've had them, and that's actually another thing to talk about. I don't know what sort of service there are in various different countries, but here in Australia, the service was fantastic. It's a physical device. Things are going to fail. I had the Ethernet port on one of them fail on me, and I had another one with a power supply die on me. But within, I think, a week, Synology had identified the problem and sent me a replacement, and then let me send the faulty one back. Like, I didn't have to send the faulty one back, wait for it. Like, the turnaround time on the customer service was really good. So kudos to them for that as well. And that wasn't even directly with Synology, that was just their supplier here. And if their suppliers are that good, the company must be treating the suppliers well. So I take that as a really good thing. One other thing I want to talk about is backup. I want to go back to that because at the beginning I mentioned how, you know, this is giving you redundancy with the drives. It's not giving you backup. And the reason for that is I believe that backup is only a backup if you have 3 copies of something and you have at least them one in a different place. So another cool thing that Synologies can do is they can talk to each other and synchronize and back up data. So I've got, you know, quite a few Synologies here, but then I've got a really big Synology at my in-laws' place connected to their network, and I've got one of the main ones, which is, you know, the really important client data set up, so that as soon as I copy data onto this one here, overnight, that will then synchronize that data and copy it across to the Synology at my in-laws. Now that's obviously here in Australia, but you can have it anywhere else in the world. So they've got a lot of really cool features that you can really take advantage of to give you peace of mind in terms of not losing data. So this one in particular, this is $8.99 Australian. Then you do need to get drives as well, and you can just put one drive in and start with one. Obviously, you don't get the redundancy or anything like that, so you probably want to start with at least 2 drives. But I've populated mine with 4 terabyte drives, which gives me about just over 10 terabytes worth of active storage that I can use on this, which is plenty. Although for me, you'd be surprised, 10 terabytes isn't what it used to be. So yeah, I think if you're a small office or some home users that you want to have lots of information in a single place that all of your family or your household or your office wants to access all the time, definitely well worth looking at one of these. The last little feature that I'll talk about, which is a bit nerdy but kind of cool, is it's got these slots here on the bottom where you can put in NVMe solid state drives, and what that is for caching. And what caching does is that it looks at the information that you need right away and really quickly, and it keeps a copy of it available instantaneously. So basically this is a fancy way to say it can make the tasks that you do most often happen much quicker on this device. So yep, that is the Synology DS420 Plus. I definitely suggest having a look at it if you are in the market for a network attached storage system. And yeah, as usual, if you have any comments, any feedback, would love to hear about it in the comments. If you liked it, liked it. If you didn't like it, don't like it, but let me know. And it'd be great if you could subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.